Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I am here to talk about the breaking news that just happened actually maybe an hour or two ago. Aaron TaylorJohnson, and if you don't know who he is, he's the guy, he's not only he's the guy who plays Kick-Ass, and most recently in terms of nerddom, he's the guy who portrayed Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. Now we know that, it was brought up in WandaVision, they recast him, but we kind of just assumed that was in the context of the universe. Well, Aaron TaylorJohnson has just been cast as Kraven the Hunter in Sony's solo Kraven movie. Now, if you've been following my channel and you know me, I'm not the biggest fan of this Sony solo thing. I'm not the biggest fan of Venom. I thought Venom was kind of a subpar movie. You know how I feel about Venom. I talked about it with my review of the Venom trailer. I feel like Venom is going backwards. I feel like this entire Sony solo thing is going backwards. It's because it's companies who don't quite understand what those characters mean in the context of one another, and they just think, oh, it's an IP, I can use it. To me, this entire Sony, it was something called the Spider-Man Cinematic Universe, something like that. The extended Spider-Man Cinematic Universe, some crazy name like that. But this whole thing that they're trying to do with these spin-offs of these Spider-Man characters, to me, is screams desperation. Everyone else has been taking this weird angle that I'm like, okay, I guess I get. It's because they're tired of the MCU and they're tired of Marvel and the MCU in general, and they want other outside, and they want Marvel other IP out. They want the Marvel IP to be made by other people outside of the MCU, outside of Kevin Feige and the infrastructure that they created, because they want to get weird weird, just wacky shit, artsy fartsy shit. But that's not what Sony's doing. Sony is making these lame ass, because I didn't think that, I don't know about you, but I didn't think the fucking Morbius trailer looked appetizing at all. When I heard Morbius was delayed a half a year or some shit, I was like, okay, why the fuck do I care? I don't give a rat's ass about Morbius. Don't get me wrong, I like Morbius in the 90s cartoon show, but in the context of him to Spider-Man, in the context that he knew Spider-Man, they were going to college together, they were cool, and some bad shit happened to him. He's not really a bad guy, but he does have bad guy tendencies. I like it in the context to Spider-Man. On his own, though, I've never picked up a Morbius comic book. The only Kraven comic book most comic book people know is Kraven's Last Hunt. And guess who was the main character? Guess who was a big part of that? Spider-Man. So Venom, initially, and like I say, people don't really go back and look at these old videos that I posted. People just look at the new ones. When Venomverse was initially about to come out, I was against it, but Venom works on his own. Venom's had many series on his own. The Lethal Protector stuff. But there was steps to the Lethal Protector. He was a bad guy. He was a straight up Joker one bad day. Eddie Brock was straight up Joker one bad day. It was like Joker one bad day if on that bad day that, the Killing Joke, when they go, you have one bad day. When he had that bad day, the symbiote landed on him. That was Eddie Brock. Yeah, he had a bad day, he broke down mentally, and the symbiote just happened to be right there at the exact same moment. It was like the stars aligned to make Venom. That's how it is. And he's Spider-Man's greatest adversary. When Venom shows up in a Spider-Man, in the early days anyways, I remember in the animated cartoon, in Spectacular Spider-Man, when Venom shows up in a story to go after Spider-Man, it's like a horror story. It's like when Venom shows up, it's briefly a horror story. Because Spider-Man can't sense him, Spider-Man doesn't know where he is, Venom knows who he is, he knows who his loved ones are, he knows that he's Peter Parker, he knows everything about him, he knows how to get around his spider sense, he knows how strong he is, he can show up out of nowhere. Spider-Man is literally terrified. Venom is the most terrifying villain he fights. So to just not even be able to do that with him, it's just kind of not even to be able to get that dynamic, to just skip by it just so you can make some money off of the confusion of fans of normal people who don't know the difference between Marvel But between Sony Marvel and the MCU Marvel, it's bothersome to me. It's old Hollywood shit, and that's why I've been so against Venom, because like, oh no, this Venom is how Hollywood used to look at superhero movies. We're going further, we're doing other things. You got shows like The Boys, you got Invincible, you got WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, you got Winter Soldier itself, you got Infinity War. We have moved beyond just this slapping the name on it and have very little to do with the actual source material, like very little to do with how it actually went down. And the more I hear about this, and so like when I heard about this universe they're trying to make, I've been against it from the jump. But like they've been saying they want to make a Kraven movie. Now, if you go twist your head back to when Far From Home came out, and we can then Marvel confirmed they're making a third Spider-Man movie, we all assumed, at least me, because Kevin Feige pretty much kind of made it a mandate, like up top. He was like, we're going to use the villains that weren't used in the Sony movies, because we want to be so distant, we want to use the villains they weren't used. And we all just kind of assumed Kraven was going to be the villain of Spider-Man 3. We assumed Kraven would be the villain of Spider-Man 3. He's on the run. He's a wanted man. He's on the run. Kraven's going to be the villain. And now I'm starting to think that was the plan, but then the whole breakdown situation with Sony just changed things, because if you remember, the early comment, no one was talking about this movie being an Into the Spider-Verse thing until later on in the game, until like maybe 7 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, like, but it was later on in the game, because at first, people like me came to the logical conclusion that it would be about that. But I'm starting to get the feeling that Sony is probably the reason this movie is going to be a Spider-Verse, the Spider-Man 3 is going to be kind of a Spider-Verse movie, is because they wanted to do some other shit. They wanted to promote themselves inside of this movie, not just, a regular MCU story, because I felt like it was like the logical story was leading to Spider-Man being on the run and bringing in Kraven the Hunter to hunt him. But I don't think we're going to get that now, since they cast Kraven the Hunter to be in a solo movie. And a description of the movie, and like what I'm hearing online from like Hollywood Reporter and like freaking Deadline and shit, is essentially they saw him in some action movie recently, and they were like, oh, that's amazing, we want him to be in this, which means that they want to make Kraven like I'm just curious at how they're going to do this. Kraven, like, don't get me wrong, Kraven's interesting, but he ain't that interesting out of the context of Spider-Man. Like what are they going to make him like this? I'm gonna get, like I said, it saddens me that the first time I'm gonna ever see Kraven the Hunter on the big screen is not as a villain to Spider-Man. Is outside of the context of Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Imagine if the first time you saw the Riddler was in a solo movie. Imagine if the first time you saw the Penguin was in a solo movie. Imagine if the first time you saw Darkseid ever on the big screen was in some solo thing. Like, that just sounds ridiculous to me. I'm like, the first time I'm ever gonna see this character, and it's all because Sony needs the money. The Spider-Man IP is the only thing that's working. Men in Black has failed them. They hope that goddamn Ghostbusters does something. All of their IPs have failed them. Sony has been on the brink of of collapsing in terms of its entertainment side, its movie side. Sony, the company, Sony maybe be fine, but the entertainment side has been on the break for a very long time. That's why they've made all these deals with Netflix and whatnot to keep afloat. But honestly, it would not surprise me, and it's been talked about before on many times on my channel, on many other people's channel, if Sony is bought within the next 3 years from now. But the thing about it is, like, they have, and like ever since Marvel decided to, help Sony out, because let's face it, they helped Sony out. I don't know people confused in anything. Trust me, if Marvel didn't step in and help Sony out, they were gonna completely tarnish the Spider-Man IP in live action. They were gonna completely tarnish it. It was gonna get less money, and they were gonna Transformers it, basically. If Marvel doesn't step in and help out Sony, if Disney / the MCU, Kevin Feige does not step in and help out Sony, they were about to Transformers the IP. And if you don't know what I mean by that, if you look at Transformers in the beginning, the movies were making money, but the more and more people finally started to catch on, fans and audience members finally started to realize this is garbage, the movies made less and less, to the point where Bumblebee, which is a really good Transformers movie, a movie that probably deserves to make as much money as those other movies did, Bumblebee flopped miserably at the box office because nobody wanted to go see it because they just figured it was gonna be bad. That's how bad that, you know, I guess doesn't Universal own, I think Universal owns Transformers, or is it Paramount? Paramount. That's how bad Paramount handled Transformers, is that eventually it just started returning. Like, the money just started lessening and lessening when people started catching on. And that's what was going to happen to Spider-Man. I shit you not. If they would have made Amazing Spider-Man 3, I'm telling you that would have made less. And then if they would have rebooted it and did it again, that would have made less. I'm telling you, it would have started and made less if Marvel didn't step in. But ever since Marvel has stepped in, Sony's plan has been clear as day. I've been talking about it nonstop on my channel whenever this topic comes up. Sony's plan is obvious. It is to confuse the general audiences into thinking that their movies are a part of the MCU. They really want you to be confused. To think that they're part of the MCU so that you go out and see it. And it is to ride the MCU's coattails until they make it. And then people will use Venom as a fucking example of, well, they can succeed without them. Yes, except for the simple fact that, like I said many times before, if you remember, just tweakly, if you just go back and go look at the footage. If you go back and look at the footage, Sony was purposely vague about if Venom was in the MCU or not. Sony was purposely vague about if Venom was rated R or not. They literally were vague about everything. And that's why that movie succeeded. Because kids thought they were going to see a rated R movie, and the MCU fans thought they were going to see a movie that was a part of the MCU. And neither one of those things were true. And sure, there are people who had fun with it in a dumb way. Not that you're dumb, but they had fun with it, like the movie, in a dumb way. So they liked it, and you got repeat viewing with children who thought they were watching something edgy. But literally, the only reason you got the asses in the seat was because of those things that you lied up, that you fucking was like vague about. And like, they're doing the same thing with Morbius, and they're gonna do the same thing with this. It's not gonna be it's not like, because, and like I said, they're not gonna distinctly come out and say that's not a part. If Kevin Feige, and I guarantee you it's in the contracts, that Feige can't just come out and say this ain't a part of our thing, because it will greatly hurt them. And like I said, man, sometimes I'm happy that we got Tom Holland. I'm a huge fan of the 2 Spider-Man movies we got. Spider-Man Homecoming in particular is a movie that this is one of my favorites. You know, I think it's the best live action Spider-Man movie. I know a lot of people disagree, but you know, living in the past with all that nostalgia. Live action, the best Spider-Man movie is Into the Spider-Verse, without a shadow of a doubt. And like I said before, that movie was basically a fucking accident because Sony didn't know how good that movie was going to be. Which makes me a little nervous about Into the Spider-Verse 2, since now they know how good it's going to be, that they might fuck that up, but we'll see. Anywho, I don't know. We'll see. I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna like it. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be kind of lame. But who knows? Maybe I'll go see Morbius in, like, I don't know. When is Morbius coming out? Whenever that comes out, and I'll like it. I can tell you I ain't gonna like Venom, but maybe I'll like Morbius. Probably not. But who knows? Fish can fucking fly in for all we know. Fish can grow wings, just fly right out of the ocean. But anyways, thank you guys for watching the Comic Game Movie Show. Please remember to like, subscribe, and what do you think about Aaron Taylor Johnson being Kraven? I mean, okay, I still don't know why we're doing this. Well, I do know why we're doing this, because Sony's desperate and they have nothing else to use, so they need to milk this IP for everything they need. Anyways, thank you guys for watching the Comic Game Movie Show. Please remember to like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.